To get into your journey from where you were when you started to where you are now in a second, but how would you describe your responsibilities to the general, I guess, understanding of your title, Vice President of Basketball Operations and Special Assistant? What is your daily set of responsibilities and big picture? What are your kind of tasks with the Mavericks?
Sure. So, just kind of being part of both organizations. I've been with the Mavericks going on 20 years now. It's really just kind of learning the front office stuff, which I've been doing from afar over the last 18, 19 years. But my primary focus is the development of our young guys and overseeing our G League team, how we can make that better, how we can develop our guys into, NBA players, and what changes, what we can do better, what we can, we need to change. So from that standpoint, and then I'm also involved in our draft, summer league, trying to find diamonds in the rough, really. Guys that are undrafted, in a couple of years worth of development can potentially be NBA players and, diamonds in the rough, so to speak.
All right, so let's go all the way back to a young Al Whitley who started with the Dallas Mavericks kind of by happenstance. How did you and the Mavericks begin this marriage that has now spanned multiple decades?
For sure. So, obviously extremely lucky. For some people that don't know, I grew up with Steve Nash, former Maverick and, Hall of Fame point guard. And through Steve, I got a chance to meet Mark Cuban. He had just kind of bought the Mavericks, and we ended up developing a friendship and a relationship, and I would see him occasionally in different cities. And I've always wanted to move to the States as a young boy growing up in Western Canada. A couple of times a year we get down to Seattle. I just fell in love with the United States, and it was a dream to one day live down here. And, fast forward till I'm 25 years old and I'm trying to figure out how to get down here. And, Mark one day just said, "Hey, would you come work for me?" And, I played college basketball in Canada, played basketball my whole life. It's my passion. And I said, absolutely, I would do anything. So I actually started September 10th, 2001, the day before 9/11, my first day with the Mavericks. It actually took 9 months to get my working visa. I didn't think it was ever going to happen. Finally got it, and that was my first day. And I started on the business side in marketing. And, did whatever they needed me to do. I worked weekends, came in early, left late, just, whatever needed to be done, just kind of trying to be the ultimate team guy. And after 1 year on the business side of marketing, Donnie Nelson came to me and said, "Hey, are you a business side guy or are you a team guy?" And I said, "Donnie, I'm a team guy. I'll do whatever you need me to do." It happened to be an opening as an assistant equipment manager, and I jumped all over it. And did that for 2 years, ended up becoming the head guy and was kind of the head equipment manager for like 13 or 14 years. And then the whole time kind of learning the ropes, learning every aspect of the business, sitting courtside for 17 years, not just sitting there watching the game, but trying to scout players and learning every aspect of what was going on and preparing myself that eventually and hopefully, if given the opportunity to jump into the front office, which was always my goal and dream, that I'd be ready. And when Mark bought the majority piece of the Texas Legends, our G League team, he asked me and promoted me to oversee and run it for him. So, very, very lucky, dream come true. Put a lot of hard years and hours into getting to this position, but extremely grateful that I got there.
All right, so you said that this was always kind of something you wanted to do. Not to nitpick, does always mean like from when you were playing basketball growing up that you wanted to be in the front office of an NBA team, or is that always maybe more something that once you were introduced to the Mavericks and you understood some of the dynamics, you set your mind on, hey, this is what I want to do? How far back do these dreams actually kind of exist?
For sure. So, growing up, playing every day, playing with Steve and understanding that, hey, we get to the 10th grade and, man, he's starting to get a lot better than us, type of deal. And your dream is always to play in the NBA. You grew up on a small island in Western Canada, should have been probably playing hockey, but, basketball was our dream and our love. And got to play a little bit in university. It really wasn't back then that I was thinking front office, just having a dream of wanting to play in the NBA one day, obviously knowing that wasn't going to happen. What's the next avenue, and how can I get to the NBA without necessarily playing? And that's where kind of in college where it started to formulate, hey, what if I could find another avenue, and what if it was in the front office or on the business side, but just being a part of a team, because I just love the culture and everything that exemplifies being a part of a team environment. And so I just kind of set myself up for it and was lucky enough to get the opportunity.
All right, so I want to dig into your time as an equipment manager and then your transition. But I think a lot of people who have been around a team know this, but maybe if you haven't, you don't realize that the equipment staff, those are the guys and gals who usually have the longest hours there. I mean, they really are the first ones there and the last ones to leave. Yeah. It's thankless in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And it, you do get certain opportunities to be a part of the team side, like you mentioned when you made that transition, but it is not as glamorous maybe as people realize. What were your experiences like, and how did you grow within that role, dealing with some of the challenges that you have to deal with?
For sure. So you nailed it in the head. It is thankless. It's long hours. If you work in professional sports, it doesn't matter if it's the NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, NFL. You're going to work long hours. Some people work longer than others, but if you're on the support staff or you're a part of team operations, you're putting long hours in, and a lot of the time they are thankless. But as I started in that role and understanding it and knowing where I wanted to go, that to me, that's laying that foundation, the hours, what you're a part of, being around the guys, like to develop the relationships, to understand this type of athlete, from when I started to where I am now. Over the last 20 years, the mindset in the athlete has changed so much. And I was fortunate enough. For the last 17, I was in a locker room every day with these guys, building friendships, understanding what they're all about, what their mindset is, their likes, their dislikes. So for me, transitioning into the front office, I feel like that's a real added bonus that I can provide for the front office of the Mavericks, right? I understand these guys, and compared to maybe somebody who hasn't spent as much time around the players. And so it's a unique avenue to kind of get in the door and be able to share that with, Donnie Nelson and Keith Cran and Michael Finley and, Mark Cuban, and just kind of, the mindset that we're dealing with here, and just kind of how to go about things along the journey. I became the president of the Equipment Managers Association. I then transitioned to the president of our Equipment Managers Foundation. Then we did a lot of work with St. Jude, trying to put myself in these roles to grow my leadership, to deal with the NBA and the executives in the NBA. I helped, with the Nike contract in terms of just, asking questions and stuff. So the whole time just trying to build my resume piece by piece, that again, if I'm ever given the opportunity to transition in the front office, that I would be ready.
All right, irrelevant material question, and then I want to get back into the serious stuff. Gear is such a coveted thing. What was over the years, and maybe it still is for you, like the piece of gear that you most look forward to getting your hands on?
I mean, to be honest with you, and even to this day with the Mavs equipment guys, Corey Johnson and Craig Metcalf, when all those boxes start arriving, it is a nightmare to deal with. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of boxes. It's not easy when it first comes in, when you're preparing for the season. To this day, I'll still go back there and say, hey, do you guys need a hand? Just because I love opening them up, see what the new gear looks like, the color schemes, the logos, the travel suits, practice shorts. It doesn't matter. I love gear. Everybody loves gear, right? I've heard over the 17 years, when people are trying to ask for gear, instead of all equipment guys would just want to hear, hey, can I get another shirt? Or as opposed to, hey, I hate to ask you, or hey, my brother lost this in the laundry, and do you think I can get another one? We've heard every excuse and everything in the book. Just come out forward and say, hey, can I get another shirt? And you'll have a better chance of getting it.
Well, what's another thing what's another trick of the trade, I guess, like in dealing with someone in that role, whether it's, paying them, not like financially necessarily, but like showing them the proper level of respect, or like maybe like the best way to get on their good side. What's another thing that you guys would kind of joke about, like, hey, like this is the way to do it?
So if you haven't seen somebody in a while and they just come right up to you and they'll just ask, right? How about asking how I'm doing? How's my family? Engaging in a conversation, trying to build a relationship with those guys, because they know everything that's coming towards them. They know everybody wants gear. They've got the key to the candy store, I used to always say. So, and take care of you take care of who takes care of you, right? It doesn't have to be monetary, but just show that you're appreciative of their hard work by a thank you, by a please. It goes a mile, I promise you.
All right, you mentioned you were the president of the equipment. What's the official
It's NBA EMA
Equipment Manager Association?
Yes, sir. Yep.
What were some of the issues that you maybe fought for on behalf of your fellow equipment managers? I guess that's is that what that sort of was? Like you guys
For
made
sure.
sure that
yeah. You know what it was? It's what I discovered early on, that there is. It feels like when you're in that position, there's a lack of respect. Are you a ball boy? Oh, you're the laundry guy. You're this, that, and the other. These guys are the integral pieces, along with the training staff, of any pro sports team or any team in general. And they're involved in the day-to-day operation inside and out. So it's an extremely important role. It's grown every year as staff have grown. The Nike contract and how big of a deal that is, they're asked of a lot of things. So, for one, when I started out early on was, how do you define respect, right? Well, pay increases, right? A lot of the guys were paid relatively low, and they'd been 10, 15 years on the job. And so we started to do salary surveys and just, I would send emails or, as the president, maybe talk to general managers about certain guys around the league and, hey, can you help them out? And, pension has always been something that they've talked about. It's never happened to this day, but just, as the trainers have that. But it's just a level of respect to, that it's an important job. These guys work hard, and they're, an important part of the success of any team.
All right. So I know that, at the core of that role, you're going to be doing a lot of the same things that your peers on other teams might. But I also know, and maybe it's changed, I know certainly at a certain point, just the way the staffs were made up, you would have all your equipment responsibilities, but maybe the Mavericks would also have you do this and that maybe isn't in that same lane. Like I know Casey Smith, the head athletic trainer, obviously does a lot of athletic training type things, but then he's also responsible for stuff that wouldn't necessarily fall under that umbrella, and that could vary team to team. What were some of your actual responsibilities that did not involve what a normal equipment manager set of responsibilities might be?
I think, early on, I loved being on the court, and when I had the time, and like I said, as staff and teams grow and, players get more and more, for lack of a better word, high maintenance, I guess. I had a little bit more time to be on the court, and I love to rebound. Obviously my two favorite guys of all time to rebound for was Derek and Steve Nash, just because you just literally had to stand underneath the net and you didn't have to move. The ball just came to you every time. My rebounding days started to end when we traded for Antoine Walker, because literally the best workout I've ever had in my life, chasing those balls. And I love Antoine. He's a good friend to this day, but you were running around like crazy. But you know what? It's really a little bit about anything. In order for a successful support staff to operate, everybody kind of helps everybody, whether it's helping out a little bit in the weight room, or if the trainers need something, you just kind of do whatever you need to do to get the job done. And the most important goal is just taking care of the players, making sure they have everything they need. And so their main focus is just playing basketball.
All right. So I think your journey is one that, whether people realize it or not, they they are in their own professional world trying to emulate, and that you got down a certain path, and that was on the equipment side, while maybe having aspirations to take over a different set of responsibilities, and that's what you have ultimately done. This is not a very, I don't have statistics on this, but I can't imagine too many people in your role have your background, and I think that's a credit to your ability to navigate those waters. But it's not always easy to aspire to do something in one lane while having to maintain a strong focus and devotion to something in another lane. How did you balance that? How did you balance your desire to grow maybe in ways outside of your responsibilities as the equipment manager while still being true and loyal to the organization and being the best dang equipment manager you could be?
Yeah, it's a great question. I really think two things. I was needing another challenge. I mean, this probably couldn't have come at a better time. I love in the equipment world and doing it, but I just felt like, I could do more or impact a different area. And one that I was really passionate about, which is, trying to make the Mavericks as best we can on the court and win championships and success and all that. The other thing too, though, that I'm, really lucky, actually two things. One was Keith Grant, which back in our assistant general manager, but back in the day, obviously staffs and everything and the whole world has changed now in terms of NBA teams, but he started in the equipment room and he worked all his way up all the way. And he's been our assistant general manager for, I don't know, probably the last 25 to 30 years. So that was an unbelievable role model for me to see that the path, whether it was done in recent history or not, it has been done. And, I'm a guy who loves a challenge, but the thing that's the most important for me is our owner. Mark is unconventional. He's out of the box thinker. And I'd like to think that I get this opportunity with 29 other NBA teams because I feel like I can offer certain things and help in this role and grow. But the reality of it is probably wouldn't happen in all 29 teams. And Mark, we're an unconventional franchise, and he's given me an opportunity. It's not a road that's been traveled very often, if at all. And, I take great pride in it, and maybe I can open the door for somebody else. There's some great, smart minds, equipment guys. I don't know if it's the same role necessarily, but maybe it opens the door for somebody that was doing equipment or something like that, similar to me, down the road. That front offices and general managers and presidents will say, "Hey, let's give so and so an opportunity." So I take great pride in it. It's been an unbelievable journey, but I've been given the opportunity to do it too. You can only go so far on your own sometimes, and you have to have people that believe in you. And fortunately, Mark's believed in me for going on 20 years now, so I'm extremely lucky.
One of the things, Al, that I've gotten to observe just in my short time, a couple years now of having a friendship with you, is your ability to connect with people and to manage people. And while I guess you don't necessarily, in my role with the Legends, thankfully haven't been in a position where we've had like a serious meeting in your office and you've had to manage me. I know that was obviously a big part of your job when you were on the equipment side. That's certainly a big part of your job now. And we had sitting over some great Greek food, we talked about the importance of relationships with people, and you already touched on that a few minutes ago. But what are some of the important characteristics or elements you think are a part of managing people and getting them to want to follow your lead?
Well, I think for one, it's not just one voice; it's everybody's voice, right? Just because I'm managing and doesn't mean that I have all the answers. I read something the other day. Great leaders don't push; they pull. Everybody is a part of it, and I was raised with two parents that taught me to respect everybody. And so whether it's the janitor busting their butt to clean the locker room every day, or it's Mark Cuban or Donnie Nelson, I really try hard on a daily basis not to treat anybody differently. I truly believe that, respect is earned, so I don't think it's a secret. I think, you just got to respect people, be polite to them, try and lead them to the best of your ability. And part of it's culture too, building a culture based on accountability. All that plays a role into the train moving forward all the time. So that's what I try and do on a daily basis and continue to get better each and every day.
All right, you mentioned Mark Cuban and you mentioned Keith Grant.
Sure.
Not to by any means diminish what influences they had on you, but you kind of already shared those. Who are some of the other folks who maybe have had an influence on you directly or maybe even indirectly throughout your career and your pursuits?
My dad for sure. Growing up in Victoria, just teaching me the values of hard work and dedication and responsibility. I'll throw my mom in there as well. They were huge influences in my life. I've really got a chance to, over the last 20 years, develop an unbelievable friendship with Don Cockstein, who's also part of the Texas Rangers. He's been an integral part of the Mavericks for the last 20 years. And, he's really helped me to believe in myself and have the confidence to pursue anything and everything, and that nothing is, you can obtain anything you want to as long as you believe in yourself and have the confidence to do it. And my grandfather, my late grandfather was a World War II vet and taught me an incredible amount of integrity and growing up as a kid. So all those people, there's many, many more. I could look to Steve Nash, and Dirk is a great example as well. Jason Kidd, these guys every day going to the gym, whether it be for a game or a practice, and pushing themselves to get better each and every day. It's not easy. This is it's a hard road to travel. And for a guy like Steve, he went to the gym every day for a purpose, and the purpose was to get a little bit better than he was the day before. There's lots of days that him, Dirk, whoever, they don't necessarily want to go to the gym, but they make themselves go because, their dedication to their craft and to be the best that they can be was incredibly inspiring to be a part of and watch that over the last 20 years or so. So, that's really been a huge factor in my life as well.
And for people who don't know, and you reference kind of being on the court, you would sit, if I'm not mistaken, kind of towards the end of the bench, right? Not always on the bench or not on the bench.
I would sit on the baseline, like right beside the bench, but right on the baseline. So I usually, I got the pleasure of being usually sitting right in front of our owner. And he's gotten quieter over the years, but back in the day when he was, I would say, not happy with some calls, it would be usually my right or left ear that he was screaming into, and I would try and block it from the referees. So it was funny.
Who's the player on any of those Mavs teams who maybe didn't get a lot of playing time, maybe would go games without playing, who would sit on the bench, who you'd maybe enjoy interacting with like over the course of the game?
Man, there's so many over the years. We just had so many great guys, but one that comes to mind right away is Brian Cardinal. One of the all-time greatest people you'll ever meet. Did his job and knew his role and did it to perfection. Came in every day, worked his butt off, day in and day out, and always stayed ready. Was the ultimate teammate. And when his number was called, which it was called in the NBA Finals in 2011, where he got in and made some huge plays for us, took a charge, did a bunch of other things. Ultimate professional, but one of the funniest guys you'll ever be around, and definitely loved my time with him while he was here.
All right, Al, you mentioned your responsibilities with the Texas Legends of the NBA G League, and I, frankly, if I'm being 110% honest, when I first started calling games for the Legends, it was just another opportunity for me to grow as a broadcaster. I now genuinely love being a part of that and the G League by proxy and seeing the way the team and the league itself has grown. And I know that you obviously now spend a lot of time with that in mind. what has impressed you most about the evolution of the G League? And then I guess what are the next steps for the league to continue to grow?
Well, I think for one, the biggest thing for me was the talent level. You know, I had been to a few G League games, but just with how crazy the NBA season is and being with the Mavericks full time up until 2 years ago, I didn't really have an accurate grasp of it. It is an unbelievably talented league. What I love about it the most is that most of these guys are right on the brink of achieving their dream, which is to play in the NBA. And how do we, that's my job and our staff's job. How do we figure out a way to get them there? If they're willing to do the work, how do we get them to the next level? And it's extremely prideful when guys get called up to the league. We had a couple guys on our team this year that I thought should have got a call up, whether with the Mavericks or with any team, and didn't, but they were super close. And it's just such a great group of guys that nobody can really act out, or because you're kind of fringe NBA players or fringe professional players, where everybody's doing whatever they can to get to the next level. And if the next level is not the NBA, maybe it's a great contract overseas, or wherever your highest level is. Helping them get to that level is extremely satisfying for all of us.
So, I spent time broadcasting minor league baseball, and it's, I guess, in some ways a similar dynamic in that these guys are trying to get to the next level, and eventually that level is the same comparatively as the NBA. They're trying to get to Major League Baseball. But the difference in baseball is that it is a team sport with individualized actions. And the only way I can really truly be selfish is maybe like when I'm on the bases, just trying to pad my stolen base stats at the expense of, someone else's at bat. But like if I'm sitting in the dugout, I can't really influence you when you're hitting. I can't not pass you the ball or
of course,
set a bad screen. But I think in basketball it's a different dynamic because there's one ball that goes around, and these guys are all trying to get noticed. They're all trying to impress someone. How do you balance that, knowing that these guys are trying to get there, so to speak, but also knowing that and imparting upon them that you still have to play a team game, and it can't just be every man for themselves? Because, Al, that's something like I think in watching the games in the G League over the last couple years versus my first 2 years, that part's changed. I thought my first year, I remember like my first few G League games, I walked out of there kind of shaking my head like, man, this is like everything that basketball is not supposed to be.
Exactly.
But that has changed dramatically. I'm curious how, and how do you guys impart that?
It's a great question. A couple of reasons, a couple of factors, I think. I'm not looking for those type of players when we're putting a roster together. Malcolm Farmer, our president, myself, we include head coach George Gallinopoulos in some of our decisions. That's not the player or the type of player that we're looking for anymore. Not to say that they were looking for that in the past, but I want culture guys. We're trying to build a culture, and some people say, well, how do you build a culture in the G League? Guys are in and out every game. The roster's changing so much. I think you can build a culture. It's based on accountability, right? And this is how we do things here. Whether you're here or somebody else comes in, your culture shouldn't change. And so I've tried to work really hard in trying to build a culture of what Texas Legends basketball is all about. And we preach culture, we preach teamwork, being a great teammate, body language. And then we talk to the guys, whether it's our coaching staff, myself, whoever, all the time. I call it the OAEs, right? Observed, analyze, and evaluating. You guys are being observed, analyzed, and evaluated all the time. When you're getting on the team bus, when you're getting off, going to shoot around, while you're playing, the guys that are getting noticed and getting call-ups are not the guys averaging 25 points on 21 shots a game. It's not going to happen in today's game. Can you show that you understand the game of basketball, make the right reads, make the right pass at the right time? Sure, score the ball. Can you defend? There's other things that scouts and that NBA front offices are looking for, other than just ball hogging and throwing up 20 shots a game. It's not going to get you noticed that much anymore as like it did in the past.
All right, Al, last question for you. You've gotten to meet a ton of people over the years with your job and just the various experiences and the travel and all that stuff.
Sure.
Who's someone you have not met who you would really like the opportunity to meet?
Wow, that's a great question. I thought you were going to say who's the one, and I was going to say Michael Jordan because I had the chance to meet him a couple of times. I've been around him, but we never, got a chance to talk. Probably somebody like Bill Russell, being a kind of a historian of the game and just, the success he had and how the game has changed so much from when he played. And every time I see him, I'm just like, wow, 11 rings, You talk about the ultimate champion. Bill Russell would come to mind pretty quick. Yeah.